It should be known by now that Sage in the past was one of the most underused agents in Valorant. Well, besides in the beta where Sage wasn't the go-to agent that everyone would pick due to how powerful she was, until she was heavily nerfed that brought down her wall from 1000 HP down to 800 HP in patch 1.0 the day that the game released, including the nerfs of her wall lasting less time from 40 seconds to 30 seconds, as well as her healing ability increased cooldown from 35 seconds to 45 seconds. And even though there were some other nerfs to her, for example, her wall being 400 credits instead of 300 credits, those nerfs were reverted in a later patch of 1.07, in which 1.07 was the last update to Sage we have seen yet. And at that time, Sage was really only useful for her ultimate, Resurrection, which in the name revived someone from the team. So what made Sage become so useful? Well, in episode 2, launched on April 27, 2021, the map Icebox was introduced with a specific spot most people should know by now, Tube. This spot was abused by almost every team that played this map, since it was one of the most powerful gateways into going into the defender's spawn, and by entering B site without people on B site really knowing too much. Wondering how to efficiently close that spot and make teams waste time there, Sage was in the possibilities and was looked more closely, eventually figuring out a new wall that can be used, the vertical wall. As underwhelming as the name might sound, this new wall can stop so many pushes from the team due to them having to break every single segment of the wall in order to get into kitchen, which was massive because not only did it take time, but it also gave off so much information. So much so that teams would eventually end up switching their plan and go A or B regularly. Due to this insane wall being found out, thanks to the invention of Icebox, Sage was starting to become more reliable. In fact, the new wall could be implemented in almost every map. So with these new maps, there's be something a little bit different. Instead of having a normal vertical wall, what we're going to do instead is we're going to take that wall and put it diagonal. It has the same idea with a vertical wall, so we're going to call it a vertical wall. However, instead of breaking all 4, we're going to break 2 instead, which is still better than breaking only 1. And there really isn't much to talk about here, but we're going to go through all the maps that have this vertical wall feel. Starting off with Haven, there's going to be 2 separate spots that you can use this vertical wall with. This next spot is going to be for garage doors. It's using the same principle as you're going to place the wall vertical to that door, so that door is not going to get blocked off, so you have to break 2 in order to go through those doors. For the last spot for Haven, we're going to go into short and we're going to place our wall like so. This spot is more of a vertical wall, however you still only need to break 2 to go through. Before you say anything, no, you can't crouch under the archway, and if they break the wall that's right beneath them, they'll still need to break another one to go through. Moving on to bind, we have a couple for bind. The first one's going to be for showers. You will line yourself up like so. If you're on the defense side, you'll be able to get here faster than people are attacking. You simply want to run up and you can wall it. Now be careful, if you want to get the orb, you want to wall it in a certain spot that you actually don't wall the orb. You want to wall a little bit away from it. You can still get the orb from it, no problem. Make sure you wall away from the orb though. This next spot for Sage is going to be in U-Haul for bind. This spot's more for attacking. You're able to place your wall all the way up so people cannot enter it. Now they can break only 2 here, however if you place it correctly, then they have to break 3 to get into U-Haul. Going on to our next map now, we're going to have Splits. Split, surprisingly, has almost no vertical walls. I'd expect this map to have a lot, but it turns out it doesn't. Come up here to Ramp for Heaven for B. And what you can do instead is the same thing with the U-Haul and bind. You can place that wall just as so. And now they have to break almost every single wall in order to get into Heaven. Now obviously for the last one, this one's probably the most used and the one you've probably seen already. This one's going to be for elbow, so Sage can plant her wall right there. And this specific spot does work actually exactly how it does in Icebox, where if you place it directly vertically, they'll have to break every single wall in order to go through. Make sure not to place it too low though on the steps, as they can jump onto it either from ground floor or from the screens from like the first step. Anyways, moving to the next map, we're going to have Ascent. Ascent only has two different spots. This spot is going to be the archway into tree from Catwalk. You can use this wall right here and you'll have to break 2 to enter in. And then you can do the same thing for the entry into tree, or garden I should say. You can use the exact same wall for garden and people can't get through. Obviously if you're on the opposite side you can jump on it, but if you're on the attacker side you can't jump on it. And finally for our last map for Breeze, Breeze is going to have a couple spots as well. Breeze mostly has the door mechanic like we've seen in Haven before. We're going to go over here to the metal doorways. And we can use our wall, and now they have to break either 2 or 3 of that wall pieces in order to go through. The same thing for wooden doors. All we can do is do the exact same wall like we did before, and they have to break 2 or 3 in order to enter. Now if you want to get a little bit aggressive with Sage or something else, you can use this wall right here, which will allow people to have to shoot 2 down in order to go through. This one's for a shop. You can place them as shown. Sage before was really not picked often, so seeing her now as she's being picked more and more often each day is starting to make an impact of how people play the game correctly. And there's much more walls that you can use to absolutely outplay your opponents, and walls that should not be allowed in the game, but that's for a different video.